We'll see. Oh, it looks like we're actually live now. Let's take a quick look. Hello, everyone. As we check to see if we're on.
Sorry, I'm responding to posts on Facebook.
Ooh, join Mike tonight. Whoa. Feels weird to be here instead of Tara.
That's unusual.
All right.
And Dave, you forgot me?
Hey, there we are. Yes, and Dave, who had a brilliant thought to add to the show once we get moving.
Oh, should I?
Hello. Hi,
Oh,
Christine.
I did? Okay. We
Hi,
are live.
Eileen, Amy, Donna, Charmaine. That's the part Tara hates. When Mike just calls out all the names. But she's not here, so I can do what I want. Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Great to have all of you on today.
Good afternoon. Hi, hello, howdy peeps. Hello. Hi, guys. Hi. Hey, family.
All right, get to the point.
You're not supposed to be here, woman. Go away.
You're not working.
So for those of you who saw the video from Tara and Jill yesterday, that was not Tara coming back out of retirement. No, she's not in retirement. Just joking. It was not Tara coming back from her sabbatical. It was that they recorded while Jill was here, and we just managed to get it on there. So, yay! But she is sitting over there, even though she's not supposed to be involved. So, we're gonna have to go put some tape on her mouth so she can't say "Get it together, people!"
And on my head, because apparently my hair is...
So, hi everyone. We are doing well, and we have an important topic today. So, I'm gonna share.
Yes, Jessica, hashtag love for Dave.
Love for Dave. All right, Jessica.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Thank you, Jessica.
Oh, we love Dave.
Yeah, actually, Dave's doing a great job being over here, and he even is starting to talk about other things he wants to add, and they're great.
Get
So,
it together, people.
Elizabeth, hello, first time on, been watching a lot of your videos. Yay, thank you. Yeah, Tara on the couch commenting again, Eileen. I try to bribe her to leave, but she won't. So, I have an important topic today. I alluded to it last week, and we're going to be sharing, and hopefully a little more casual, but we'll see how that goes. Here, why don't you put your...
Oh. Yeah, I forgot you're going to be slamming the table a lot. So.
Yeah. So, we've been talking the last few shows about getting out of debt and saving money and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it was, specific points and talking about specific things. But today, we have a much more important thing, which actually affects your life on a much larger scale. And that is feelings.
Feelings.
Nothing more than feelings. So,
Follow your heart.
it's always been a problem for people, but I think it's even more of a problem in our time that we live in now. And that is the desire to attach too much significance to feelings. So, first, I just want to challenge everyone as we're talking about improving your life, before we get into talking about feelings, to ask, do you really want your life to get better or not? Because we see a lot of comments from people that say they want their lives to get better, and then they define the problem, and then look for a whole bunch of reasons why it's not going to work and it's going to be this way or that way. And a lot of the times, it has to do with, I can't give this up because we need it. We just need it. And
It's a necessity, even though we don't use it half the time.
And it goes back to how you feel about things. And feelings can, Star Wars, they used to say, trust your feelings. And over the years, I've learned you cannot trust your feelings most of the time. It's just a movie. Okay, bring it down.
Just calm down.
You can't trust your feelings most of the time. Feelings are good as adding a little flavor to life. But if feelings contradict what you know to be true or facts, you can't trust them. And the reason I bring that up now is because feelings will cost you money. They cause a lot of, I would say, so I put here one of the biggest problems that cause people to be in debt and make all kinds of other bad decisions in life is placing too much value on feelings. And I went as far as to say most financial problems result from people's feelings. They're buying things for emotional reasons rather than because we actually need it. And most relationships probably come from a combination of decision making that's partly based on feelings and partly based on selfishness.
Oh
So-
my.
So as we talk about the feelings, I wanted to mention a few things. I'm going to look at my notes because I felt somewhat disorganized on the last couple shows. But, when you're... I'm going to get into it a little bit in just a minute here about how it affects financially people's lives negatively, and then in other ways besides financially. But first, I'm going to just point out that when you're a baby, you learn to understand the world around you by kind of what happens to you, and then interpreting that and assigning some kind of meaning to it. And sometimes you make mistakes as you grow up. And if you come up with an assertion based on a mistake, then there's going to be a flaw in that thinking. And feelings are helpful, if you're in a terrifying situation and you have to flee and save yourself. And feelings are helpful if you're using your brain and you're in a relationship and the feeling is just adding a little pizzazz to this is a good relationship. But not for other things. So I'm going to say that feeling good does not mean that life is actually good, and feeling bad does not mean that things are bad. So one thing that is really big problem as far as feelings, people and feelings, is seeking to feel good all the time. It's just not possible. You can't feel good all the time, and it's not natural. But if you thought you could feel good all the time, you would never feel good because you have to have something to contrast that against. And the thing I was talking about feelings you don't have to feel good all the time. Well, the feeling good doesn't mean life is truly good, and feeling bad doesn't mean things are bad. That's really important because you can feel good today when your whole life is collapsing all around you. And I think a big problem that we're going to be talking about is people seek that. I want to feel good now, and I'm not really going to think about how that's going to affect me in the future. On the other side of that, I know in my life I've struggled at times with feeling bad and thinking that means things are bad. But evidence says otherwise. And some of you know my background a little bit, but had some rough times in my life, and I for a long time struggled with thinking I feel bad and therefore things are bad. And I eventually started to realize that's a lie. And in my brain, I was assigning meaning to something that wasn't true. And part of the way that you can overcome a lot of the other lie on feelings is to get this straight. Yes.
Sacred Wonders wanted to know, as a minister, do people mix up feelings and faith?
Yes. A lot of people mix up feelings and faith. And a lot of people think if they feel good, that they're on the right track. And that's not necessarily true as far as faith goes. So I can maybe talk about that a little more after a little bit here. But so I'm going to go in and talk about financially, since this is mostly about debt and stuff like that we are talking about some of this on the show. I will say that financially, a lot of the problem comes from people thinking that they're deserving of feeling good all the time. Because people use words like deserving, fair, not depriving myself. And all those words are feeling words.
I work hard.
I work hard, so therefore. And those are words that express the fact that your feelings are leading you. And it's in a financial way, the way that you need certain things to live. And virtually everyone in most of the countries that are listening to this probably has the ability to bring in enough money in some sort of way to survive. But we've kind of mixed up surviving with having everything we want. And we've also connected things with value, or things with joy.
That's not survival.
No.
Just throwing out that out there.
Yeah. And we've been realizing, as we've noticed, a lot of what we talk about is kind of cutting back your budget, saving in certain areas so that you can improve your life in other areas. And we hear people all the time saying, I just can't do that because I have to have a car payment and I have to have cable and I have to have my iPhone. It has to be the iPhone X and it has to be on this plan. And the kids have to have phones because what if we go to football practice and I can't get a hold of Johnny at the moment I drive up? So those are
Phones are
nice things to have if you can afford them, but they're not needs. And to think of them in more than a utilitarian way is a mistake. So I'm going to look through my notes so I don't get too far off the track. Something else, I think feelings hold back your enjoyment of life. Yes.
Diana wanted to know if we will do cooking at some point.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So cooking, for those of you who are wondering about cooking, I'm planning to do something on Wednesday. Although I had a particular plan of something I thought would be fun to cook, but I realized it's not very frugal. So I'm not sure about that, but I was planning to cook something on Wednesday. So yeah. Okay, so on the feelings, financially, people get into trouble thinking, first of all, I need to have what somebody else has. And if I don't, then I'm deprived. And that's not really true. As we've talked about before, you need to have food, you need to have shelter, and those are the basic things. And then other things are desires, and it's okay to have some of those if you can afford them. And most people can afford quite a few of them. The issue that I see is in the past, people used to, this is actually kind of good for the video that was posted yesterday, and a lot of people had big trouble with it about the cost of groceries. But the truth is, in the past, people spent pretty much they spent all their income on housing, clothes, and food. All survival. All of the money went to survival. And when people were poor, they were actually giving up needs. Like, we can't feed the family today. Tara's grandfather is 92 years old. And they used to live in the mountains here in Colorado in the Depression era. And he talks about they didn't have enough food, so his mom had to make them pancakes every day, just mixing flour and water. And so they were actually giving up needs in order to survive because they didn't have much money. We've kind of gotten that backwards these days, and so now we think more that everything other people have is a need, or everything we would like to have is a need.
They're selling that new car for $29,99,000. I mean, wait.
29,900.
29,900.
Yeah.
And I need that right now. Even though that's actually a small car payment, to be honest. But yeah.
Right. So
it's crazy.
What I'm saying here is that people, I think pretty much all of us do this to some degree, which is why I didn't feel bad saying what did I say? You are the problem, because I don't do this as much financially, but I do sometimes. But definitely in other ways in life, I let my feelings rule me. And I've come to realize every time I do, things end up bad. And I think if you really get honest with yourself, you'll probably realize that's the case with you too. So many people I know won't leave their houses because they're afraid that some crime is going to happen to them. People are motivated to buy things they don't need. I need a much fancier car because I might survive a car accident better if I'm in it. And I need a new car because what would people think of me if I had, it's funny how people define old clunker cars that are actually decent cars, but they're just not the car they want.
If it runs,
so it's a clunker. That way I can justify saying I can't have that one. I have to have payments. And a lot of these...
That's making yourself a slave.
Right. Actually, Dave's right.
Yeah.
When you do that, you're making yourself a slave. But what people don't realize is you're kind of baited in to, wow, I can feel good today. And if I feel good today, then that's the most important thing.
Don't do college either. It's a waste.
But in the long term, you're making yourself a slave because you didn't really think, what is that cost going to do? So for us, we've been out of debt for a long time, except for we have a little bit of mortgage on our house. And we are rapidly paying that off now. But we know so many people who are completely maxed on everything, and they say we're so lucky that we're in the situation we're in. But the thing is, it's not luck. It's that we have at times realized we have to take control of those feelings and think, what are the facts in this situation? And that was really hard for me because I grew up really thinking a lot that my feelings were the most important thing. And actually, it's funny because if you react to things like the title of today's show or the title of yesterday's video by getting upset right away and wanting to go post a comment without listening to it, then you seriously have a problem with feelings. Because just because somebody says something doesn't mean that it applies to you. And even if they think it applies to you, who do you know who you are? And do you care if it applies to you? So I'm kind of moving around a little bit, but go ahead.
You can control your own life. So if you want to get 1,000 car payments, it's you. I mean, yeah.
Okay,
but,
you lost me, Dave.
You know, no, I mean, like, you don't have to follow what we say. It's just, you know.
So let me ask you a question, Dave.
Yeah.
So here's a question I'm going to ask
hard
you
to explain.
that somebody's asked me recently. A lot of people have asked me recently. As a guy, who is more responsible with your money, what do you say to people that you know if they see the way you spend and they're critical of that? Or how do you how do you relate to other people when they're spenders and you're not? How does it make you feel when you don't spend the money and they do?
Well, I honestly don't care, but I don't.
That's the answer.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have to follow what we say. It's just if people ask for help on how to do stuff, and then we explain it to you guys, you know, we expect you guys not to get mad over that.
So that's not the point that I was going toward. But what I was thinking is,
I was trying to talk about that video, but yeah.
Some people have asked me, so how do you explain it to your friends and your neighbors when you don't spend the way they spend? And I'm thinking, I don't care what they think about how I spend. What I do care about is, I don't really care about what they're doing. In fact, what I actually care about is, what is our family situation and how are we using the resources that we've been given in order to make the best situation out of our lives. And and for us, that is, we'd rather pay cash for a $3,000 car that's not a bad looking car and that drives fine, and put the money in our house than to have payments on a vehicle and not be able to pay off our house. It's funny because I know a lot of the neighbors are spending a lot in order that other neighbors see them and think that they're okay. But that's not really a good reason. And the truth is, those people, if deep down you're doing something because what would somebody else think,
you shouldn't.
Because what would somebody else think, or how's that going to reflect on me? You shouldn't do that, because the reality is those people don't care about you.
Like, if you have an iPhone 10, most people aren't going to notice. Like, you just having your iPhone 10 and doing stuff. Like my $200 watch, you know, that you were going to do a video on it. No one cares. I mean, it's just a watch, but I think it's cool, so, you know.
He bought a watch with his own money.
I have it just because I enjoy it and it looks cool for me, but I don't care what other people think. Like, you know, if I were to get a normal watch, I wouldn't care.
And when Tara gets back, she wants to do a video explaining why we let him do that. But
yeah.
But what he just said, there's something he just said there that's really important. When you think about what are these other people going to think of me, and it could be, what is mom going to think of me, or what is so-and-so going to think of me? Okay, maybe if it's your mom, you may have a little more reason to think she's actually thinking about you. But the reality is, almost nobody that you're asking about what do they think about me, almost none of them notice you at all.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. It's not like you're not important, because you are. But the thing is, people aren't thinking about you. They're thinking, I wonder what they're thinking of me over there. So everyone's thinking about what everyone else is thinking, and it's not...
They're not caring about anyone else. They're just like, what is everyone thinking?
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
these things have come to take over people's lives and make you a slave. And when I say that, what I mean is if you really think, what do I need to live? And how can I be content in the life I have? And when I say content, it doesn't mean, okay, I'm doing the minimum I can at my job and I have the minimum amount of money coming in to cover me minimally. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, yes, I'm going to try to improve myself in my work. I'm going to do the things I think are important, but I'm going to be content and realize that the place where I'm in life now, I can be happy. And I don't need the things to make me happy. And those things aren't going to make you happy. There's a reason why I was going this direction. I just ran to the end of my track. So let me think for just a moment.
Look back at the paper.
Well, actually, I'm off script now.
Oh.
Mike unplugged. So let me take a quick look here so I can find something. By the way, I was thinking about how feelings hold back people's enjoyment of life. And what was making me think that today is Jack asked me for if I could give him some of the cinnamon rolls from one of those cans of cinnamon rolls at the store. And I was thinking some people have heard things about those cans of cinnamon rolls and are terrified of them. And as I was rolling it and waiting for it to go, I thought, can you imagine if you're afraid of cinnamon rolls? How
It's a huge problem, apparently.
how this would affect
Oh,
your
yeah,
enjoyment
people
of
have made-
life.
People have made those memes where like they're unwrapping it and a nuke happens or something.
Apparently, this is like a huge phobia.
It's an epidemic.
I say that in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, but the truth is there are all kinds of things in life where people's feelings override their enjoyment of life. And I actually was telling BJ this. I don't remember where I learned this, but there's a time in life where, because I grew up with a lot of anxieties and things, and I was pushing against them, I wasn't pushing against them till I met Tara, and she said, "Get it together, Michael." So that was before she had all you guys to say that too. So I realized at some point, I think somebody told me this analogy. It's kind of like you're living life in a bubble, and either you're pushing against your fears or they're pushing back in on you. And so you're either making your world bigger and everything is clearer and you're more confident, or you're afraid and the world is coming in on you. So that's more fear, but fear is probably the biggest emotion that people have trouble with.
Ooh,
So-
fear. We could do a whole show on fear. Ooh,
Right.
there's a lot of content there.
So I'm going to go into a few areas of life. Yeah. Fear is its own.
What?
Fear is its own thing, but I'm trying to think. So there's fear. There's a desire to be accepted by other people. There's sadness and depression, anxiety. A lot of these things they're all emotions that people struggle with, that they allow to let them do things that they shouldn't. So in some areas, so I'm going to go back to money. With money, people buy all kinds of things that they don't need because for whatever reason they come to believe they need them. Sometimes it's advertising says, if you really want this girl, you're going to have to buy this beer. Or,
That made no sense.
seriously, have you ever watched it? Well,
No, he hasn't.
he doesn't see beer commercials. We don't watch football games very much.
Oh, are you talking
So-
about those beer commercials where they talk about how this beer
where they're
is
playing
special
pool and they're talking about how this beer is special, and there's a girl that's not wearing very many clothes laying across the pool table while he's shooting pool. Yeah. And that's manipulating you. Or there's so many things about, I can't remember the words on this. I should have written these down on some of these commercials, but commercials that imply that if you have this product, you'll be prettier because you're really not pretty enough the way you are. If somebody told you that in real life, would you say, "Oh, you're right," or would you slap them? And it's the idea that you're not good enough the way you are, and you have to have things to make you happy. And the funny thing, people are funny creatures in that a lot of people don't come to the point, and it took me a while to wake up to this too, that if you feel like this thing is going to make you feel better and you buy it and it doesn't make you feel better, most people then run to buy the next thing. But there's a point where if you think instead of feel, you can think, I keep buying things and those things don't make me feel better. So why am I continuing to chase things that aren't making me feel better?
That's just extra junk.
Yeah. And as I talk about this, there's something from somewhere else in my notes that I had that I thought I'd bring up here is people like to say things like, I feel that I need to do this, or I feel that it's best for me to do this or not to do this. And I can tell you, if you use the word feel a lot, it kind of, in a sense, shows where you're coming from in terms of what you let define you. Same thing with words like,
Grow up.
yeah, Tar says grow up. And it's true. But I mentioned this earlier, but words like fair, oh, that's not fair that these people have that and I don't. Or I deserve this. And it especially works with things like I deserve this because I did this other thing. Or I feel that this is the best way. Because a lot of people, you can present them with a fact and they'll say, well, I feel that it's different in my case. Well, no, the sun comes up in the east for everyone on Earth.
Are you sure about that?
Okay, maybe it doesn't if you're on the North Pole. I don't know.
I feel like it rises on the south.
But
Wait, what?
certain things are facts, and if you feel differently about them, it's not going to change the fact. So we like to go hiking in the mountains, and if I feel like I really don't want there to be this ravine here that's always been there, it's not going to make it move because I feel like I want it to be different.
You're not God. You can't be like, I want this ravine to be gone.
Yeah, so you can't
just
change
Yeah.
things by how you think you feel. So anyway, so we were talking about food, money. Okay, so then there are other things like news.
Ooh,
News is another thing that affects how you feel about things and leads you, and social media, and they lead you to spend money and make decisions about your life that aren't wise for you. A lot of people don't realize news is thought to be something for the greater good, where people come and they tell you all these facts and life is wonderful and peachy. But the reality is they're people, and they're people in a business. They're people, some of them have specific agendas and they want everyone to believe that. And so whether it's true or not, they're going to share that. Some of them, a lot of them are honest, but they just don't understand the story. So all those things can cause people to think things that aren't true and act with feelings. So when I talk about that, what I'm getting at is if you hear a story about something and you haven't really checked to see if it's true, but you kind of just adopt that as something you believe, then you might feel afraid or you might feel left out if you don't have something. And that, again, is pushing back to their advertisers. When I was in film school and I was in the television program, on the first day of class, they asked us, what is the purpose of television? And we were thinking, oh, it's to entertain you, it's to give you a diversion, make you feel good, let you relax after the busy day. No. They told us its purpose is to get you to watch ads so that they get paid. And news is the same way. It's just that because it's somewhat based, it has some amount of fact built into it, people think that it's not. But it's really kind of entertainment that's not very fun.
It's based on fear.
Yeah. So anyway, relationships. Feelings are great to add a little spice to a relationship that's already a good and healthy relationship for you. But feelings are not good in choosing and evaluating relationships. And
Amen.
I would say that one of the big reasons why there are a lot of relationship problems is because initially when people are looking at somebody to have a relationship with, they are going by feelings. I feel like I love this person and I feel like, and that's just a silly way to judge. And part of the problem is if you get too close to a person, those feelings are going to get you all confused and you will not be capable of thinking anymore. So thinking is always preferable to feeling, and feelings can be useful. Sometimes if you know in your mind, I'm not in a very good situation here, this is bad, and you feel like it's dangerous, then the feelings can be good. But most of the time, letting feelings lead you, especially with no other evidence, is bad. So further on relationships.
We got a super chat, a $10 super chat from Mayflower Homeschool.
Thank you, Mayflower Homeschool. That is
saved
awesome.
$100 per month on groceries / household items from Dining on a Dime.
Woohoo!
These videos have helped me pay off my debt and not live in fear. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome, Mayflower. Thank you so much, Mayflower Homeschool. Yay! And she says she saved $100 from the tips in Dining on a Dime. A month. Wow. So that's our. Do we have it here? She's referring to our Dining on a Dime cookbook, which actually is full of recipes and tips and ideas to help you save on your food bill. And it's
Eat better and spend less.
eat better and spend less. And the truth is, virtually everyone saves the amount of the book the first time they go to the store. So just put that in there since we had that little comment. But back to relationships. There are other relationships, though. We'll stick for just a minute with kind of marriage type relationships. When people have dissatisfaction and they say maybe we should get a divorce, a lot of times.
Careful what you say.
Be careful what I say. This isn't about you.
Oh.
This isn't about you, girl.
Oh!
So we've seen, unfortunately, situations where people start heading down the road, and this relationship is going to be bad. And there's one particular one I'm thinking of where the guy was kind of sneaking around, found himself a girlfriend, and was keeping that a secret and all. But in his mind, he was thinking, I'm not happy in my current situation, therefore, and this is, you notice it's all me. I'm not happy in my current situation, and therefore I'm going to find someone else who will make me happy. Those are all feelings things, and they're all flawed, highly flawed. And in this particular situation, they ended up with a divorce, and this person went and tried to make something with his new girlfriend. And guess what? That lasted all of 3 or 4 months. And then he thought, this isn't making me happy. How am I going to go find something? And in my mind, I was thinking, okay, do you realize maybe you assumed the wrong problem because you were letting your feelings lead you? And the reality is, in a situation like that, both people are going with feelings. They're letting the feelings drive them, and they're assuming things that aren't true because they're not looking at the facts. And in a relationship like that, usually the problem is not in the other person. And the problem is in the way that you think about things and the way the relationship together is working, not in how people feel about each other. Could be a whole show we could talk about that, but I'm going to move on. So other relationships, parents and kids. This is huge. I don't know how often I hear parents say, I am going to buy little Johnny this thing because
This iPhone 10.
how would he feel if he's the only kid in his class that doesn't have a phone? Or wouldn't he be left out if he couldn't socialize with his friends because he doesn't have a phone? Or what would I'm a single parent, and I feel really bad that the other parent isn't in my child's life, or not in my child's life enough, or maybe I made a mistake and the relationship went bad and now I'm a single parent. Therefore, I'm going to flood my kid with gifts and things in order to compensate. And all those things are feelings of, what if my kid doesn't love me? And the problem with that is your kid loves you and needs you to be you. But if you let the feelings drive you toward things, you are going to break that relationship with your child.
Also, if you allow your kids to constantly say, I want, and then they get it, it'll just train them when they're adults to say, I want, and then they'll just grab everything they want. So you're really not doing justice to your kid.
Yeah, that's where this is going. So right now, it feels good to say, oh, here, have this toy. And you see little Johnny lights up, and he's really excited for the 5 minutes while he's enjoying it before he tosses it aside, and you still have to pay for it on your credit card. And in the short term, it seems like a good idea. But then, when Johnny doesn't get what he wants, Johnny throws a fit. But mom or dad doesn't realize, well, Johnny's just realized if I push the right buttons, I'll get what I want. So letting those feelings take over as a parent is catastrophic, really. And I'm going to say there are times where our kids have been mad at us. Believe it or not, it has happened. And
What?
in those
No.
moments, we have to realize, am I trying to win their approval, or am I trying to be the parent? Because as the parent, there is no better way to know you're doing a good job as a parent than having your teenager tell you they hate you.
Oh, I haven't gotten that.
We haven't really had
yet.
them say, I hate you, but we've had them say things that were kind of close to that.
We haven't
Definitely expressed
those
great
words.
dissatisfaction in having to have mom and dad being huffy about not wanting to do things, but doing them anyway because they know that they have to. But if you're trying to go with your feelings, then you become an appeaser and you give them everything they want. And what that teaches them is now you're the servant to them. And sadly, we see a lot of people who get older and then their kids are adults and living with them and still expecting mom and dad to take care of them. And it's hard to undo that problem later. So, but that's based on feelings too. I listed a few reasons why those feelings might happen. I also know someone whose husband died in war, and she tried to compensate with her son, and he became very spoiled, and it kind of ruined his life in the long term. So, yeah, he's looking at something else I said on my list here. So, all kinds of relationships can be troubled because of letting feelings control it. Again, like I said, feelings are great. I just get the warmest feeling ever when Jack comes with his blanket and wants to give us blankie love, or when when the kids are they're being who they are, and I realize, oh, isn't this wonderful? They're who they are. They're doing what they were made to do, or they're showing independence, and they're making good decisions. They're taking care of other people. Those things just it's okay to have feelings like that. It's not okay to have feelings like, wow, if I don't let him do this, he's going to hate me. And one other thing I'll mention now that I think about it, a lot of people struggle and spend more money than they should, or they not spend more money than they should, but they also do things they shouldn't do that they know are going to be trouble for them and their family because someone else in the family has an expectation of them. And the truth is, reasonable expectations are okay. If you know that you're an alcoholic and you don't want to hear your mom say that you're an alcoholic and you're an adult, you're an adult and it's your decision to make. But at the same time, it's not necessarily unreasonable for a parent to try to move you away from that. But more often we hear, so-and-so just announced that they're coming to town and they want to come stay with us for a week. And it's not unreasonable to say no, but feelings will get in the way. Oh, by the way, there's a book. It's on our Amazon store. Dave, that's on the show notes page, the Amazon store. There's a book that we recommend if you have that trouble with family or friends or, relatives, that sort of thing. It's called Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. It's really, really good for situations where people try to manipulate you into things like, hey, we're coming over to your house this weekend, and if you love me, you'll let us come stay.
Also on our Get It Your Life Together playlist.
And Tara says it's also on our videos.
Yeah.
On YouTube, we have playlists on the side, and one of them is Get Your Life Together playlist, and it's one of the ones we recommend there too. So that's where feelings also can get in the way and
Wait,
take
do
over.
what? Wait, oh, Amazon link? What?
Yes.
Yeah, go to the show notes page and pull up the link to the Amazon store. Okay.
Sorry.
So I need to kind of quickly go through my list because I realize I'm just blathering on. No, I'm saying too much. But these things are important, and that's why I've been saying that. So, I already went into don't be friends with your kids, be parents. Or it's okay to be nice to your kids, but just if it comes between being a parent or a friend, you want to be the parent. There's one that says our Amazon store, that one right there.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the Amazon store, the link that he's sharing, it has the book Boundaries, and I think there's another one we put on there too that's the same kind of book for if you're feeling bad about something it's a book to help you decide, wait, these feelings are really not appropriate in this situation because this person is manipulating me, and here's how to get out of it. So
I can't post
he's
it
going to
on
share that link.
Facebook, on YouTube, because it's too long.
You can take that statement off down there.
Okay.
So, all right. So I'm looking further, and there are a lot of. Oh, one other thing on parenting. I would never say don't do that because it makes mommy sad, or it makes Johnny sad when you hit him. Sometimes kids need a little more forceful reminder than that
Like,
you are the boss.
Don't straight up punch them and make them lose all their teeth. But, you know, if they're being a bit whiny, it's fine to, like, you know, lean them over your leg and pat them on the butt or something. Oh, you know.
I can see that Dave gets attacked for mom.
Hey, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
But overemphasis on feelings, like, oh, look at the feeling, look at what this causes somebody else to feel. That's encouraging them to think about other people in terms of feelings, and that makes you more easily manipulated. So if you tell your kid, oh, look at how Johnny feels when you do that, maybe Johnny needs a little swat on the backside. Or maybe Johnny needs to not have something he really wants. I mean, one time, our kids were fighting, our two older kids were fighting relentlessly on July 4th. And we were in Wichita, Kansas, and in May, they have this big event that's fireworks, and it's a fun outdoor event, River Festival. And so we had already been to the fireworks in May, but it's July 4th. The kids have this expectation. We get to go to fireworks. This is going to be wonderful. And Tara and I were like, we don't really feel like going to the fireworks today. We're so tired. It's been a rough week. But the kids were fighting and bickering. And finally we were like, you know what? No fireworks. That was their moment was like,
wait, wasn't that when I was a kid?
What do you mean no fireworks? We're like,
yeah, I remember being terrified of those things. Oh, I was happy that
you were happy we didn't go. But the thing is, it's better to have some sort of a thing that they don't get, or maybe a little swat on the backside or something like that, rather than telling them this makes mommy feel sad or this makes Johnny feel sad. Because they're not responsible for your feelings. And it is possible to manipulate kids to do that. And sadly, a lot of people have the thought that that's an appropriate way to handle it. But here's why it's not. When the kids get older and they're in a situation where they have a choice and somebody's trying to pressure them into something they don't want, if they've been trained to think when people are sad, I need to do what they want, then they're going to make a bad choice that's harmful to them. So again, feelings. Not good to be led by feelings. So I'm going to see if I can quickly go through, because I wanted to stop and do a few things before we're done here. Take some questions and answers, and we have a package to open from a viewer in New Zealand.
Leona said parenting featuring Dave.
Yeah. Dave learning his parenting skills young. By example, not by... So anyway. And then there are other issues that I won't get into too much, but things like things that you might hear in the news, like about food or about chemicals or about biological weapons in other countries. Or one time we had somebody, when they were talking about anthrax on the news, that got a book from us that had a little bit of white powder in it because of the printer, and asked us, "Are you sending me anthrax?" Well, this is an actual person with a brain, and I'm thinking is, you have a brain, but you're letting your fear, your feelings, and what you heard on the news combined make you do something you shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of things, again, we've talked about this in other shows, we'll talk about it more, but I'll just gloss over it and basically say there are a lot of things that you might hear in the news, and you make a life decision based on it, but if you really look at it, it may be a problem, but the probability of it actually hurting you in your lifetime with the amount that you use or whatever is virtually zero. Maybe it is zero. And in those situations, you have to think, am I more afraid of this thing? So one quick example. We talked about rice, arsenic in rice. They talk about arsenic in rice on the news. People are afraid of arsenic in rice. And so because of that, they're going out of their way to rinse rice and do all these other things with it to get arsenic out of rice. And so a while back, I took a look to see, because I'd never heard arsenic in rice, and we don't rinse our rice. I happened to look online, and it said, yeah, that it's thought that there might be the potential of dying from arsenic that comes in rice. But all food on Earth that's grown in the ground has arsenic to some degree, but rice maybe a little more. But I was looking at it, said the probability of dying from arsenic in rice was something like 1 in 200 million.
And even then, it's still maybe.
It was a really high number. I can't remember I'm just spewing off the top of my head at the moment. But the probability of dying in a car accident, it's like 1 in 64. And I just went online and I Googled, forgot what it was, but if you type in some words to the effect of insurance company death probabilities, it'll come up, and there's an agency that, or a insurance commission or whatever, that keeps track of the probability of dying from things like falling backwards down your stairs while you're on a skateboard.
Life insurance and death probability.
And you'd be surprised some of the things that you may worry about, if you look at the probability of dying from that compared to other things you do without thinking, it's the feeling that's sabotaging you from enjoying your life. So another thing is, I know a lot of people that won't travel because they're afraid to fly. But like in 7 or 8 years in America, one person has died from a problem on an airplane. And if you think about how many planes fly every day, you just can't let those feelings control you. So anyway, as I'm wrapping it up here, anxiety and depression. Okay, I know some people actually have medical problems, but I think the number of people that have anxiety and depression from medical problems is dramatically overstated. And I think the number of people that are getting drugs to treat anxiety and depression when they don't really have a medical problem is really high. And I think a lot of times it's because there's a major cause. Mike, as not a professional, but speaking from life experience, a major cause of anxiety and depression in virtually everyone in America is a feeling versus fact conflict.
Facts are constant. They stay. They do not change, but your feelings do. And they can change within seconds.
And a lot of times it's, you need to do something or not do something, but because you feel like you want to or you don't want to, then it can cause a problem, and that can lead to anxiety. So, for instance, you have your little family, a husband and wife, a couple kids, and some family member, some extended family member has the expectation that you are going to come and do what they want when they tell you. You don't like to do it, and maybe you should come visit. But whenever you go visit, bad things happen. They don't treat you well, but because they're family, you let them do it. And maybe your spouse is getting upset with you because your spouse is saying, how come you let them do this to me? They're your parents. And you know in your mind, my spouse is right, and this is wrong that this is happening, but I don't want them to look poorly on me because it's my parents or my whatever.
My brother, it's my parents.
And that can cause anxiety, and it can cause anger between you and your spouse because you are letting feelings get in the way of doing what's right. Yeah. So I would say if you have a lot of anxiety and depression, this is the quick mic thing. If you have a lot of anxiety and depression, you might ask yourself, what thought is it that makes me feel that way? And much of the time you'll realize, when I was thinking about this, I started feeling anxious. And a lot of times it's something you need to do, but you're afraid of it, or you're afraid to offend somebody or whatever, or you just don't want to do it, but you should, and that causes that. So what to do about it? I put up a quick little list about feelings. I would say, first of all, accept the fact that you cannot trust your feelings as decision-making tools. It's okay to have feelings again, and it's okay to feel things that are painful, and you shouldn't mask things that are a problem. You should fix them. You should think, how can I fix this, and try to fix it rather than try to mask it. But, okay. So I have accept the... What?
I have something on the first point.
Okay. So, just a second. I put here, accept the fact that you can't trust your feelings, and ask when something is up and you're not feeling good about it, does this really make sense? So I used to be terrified of bees. I was terrified of bees. And one time, Tara and I were at a botanical garden, and there was a bee flying around, and I got all afraid, and I ran screaming and acting like a crazy person. And I was upset that she didn't see the problem there. But
maybe I'm
eventually I
very wrong.
realized, okay, I feel bad about this, but nobody, well, I didn't have a bee allergy. Okay, I'll start with that because I had been stung before. But I realized I can't really trust this feeling. This feeling is not rational. If I jump off a bridge, I mean, one time I actually jumped when I was a teenager. There were other reasons this happened. I'm not just a mental case. Well, okay, that wasn't really said well. There were particular family dynamic reasons that I did this, and I would get into that in some other thing. But basically, I was on a ladder 15 feet above the ground, and I got stung by a wasp. And because the feelings were so high, I jumped, and there was pavement below. And in the last second, I realized, and I grabbed the ladder, but I could have killed myself, or at least seriously hurt myself by letting that feeling get in the way of reality. And yeah, I know a lot of you probably have the same bee thing. You don't like bees and wasps, and I hate wasps, but I'm not afraid of them anymore. And I realized at that point that letting those feelings control me, I almost hurt myself a whole lot worse. And more recently, I was stung by a wasp last year, and I didn't quite realize what happened because I've just come down that much from that feeling. So asking, does this really make sense, and what would be a better thing? Another thing is driving in the car. I've been driving in the car with a wasp flying around in there, and like, okay, I'm gonna quietly, carefully pull over and let the wasp out of the car, but I'm not gonna crash the car because that would be stupid. So I think Heidi said my mic phrase should be "that would be stupid."
No,
So go ahead.
that was. Wait, hang on.
Or did Jamie say that?
Hang on. Yes, it was Jamie.
So
She said, "No, that's a
stupid idea."
Needs to
Okay.
be Dad's catchphrase.
all right. So what were you going to say about that one before I move on to the next one real quick?
I was gonna say you should also think about the long term when thinking, does this really make sense? Because if you're thinking about getting a $100,000 car loan, you should think, in the future, will I be upset? Or will I have enough money?
Landing on the pavement.
So yeah, will you be okay landing on the pavement?
Yeah. Well, the car analogy. Okay, so I go into debt this much for the car, but if I lose my house in the future, I actually heard some people talking about this today, and I can't believe they were like, yeah, you have this car payment, so you're going to have to lose your house. And I was like, that's just the way it is. No, don't
It's
get the
not.
car instead of the house. That's a brain thing. But the feeling thing is, I want to look cool driving around in this car because this isn't the piece of junk that the other guy's driving. Well, he's driving a decent looking car, and it gets him where he needs to go and has air conditioning and heat and a radio. But just because it's not the brand newest one and he doesn't have a huge car payment, who's the smarter person here?
Yeah.
Somebody's going on feelings and saying, I feel like $1 million in this car, until my wife and I start talking about money, and all of a sudden I'm stressed out, and it's her fault because she's arguing with me and it's my car. But in reality, I'd say the smarter person in that situation is the one that hasn't extended himself beyond in order to have a momentary high or whatever. So, yeah. Also, I forgot to put this on here, but maybe I should. Well, first of all, I have do what you know to be right. If feelings don't confirm it, do what you know, not what you feel.
Doing what is right is not always comfortable.
Doing what is right is not always comfortable, and in certain cases, it's never comfortable. So,
You do what's right anyway.
yeah, if you
Get it together, people.
you're setting yourself up for a lot of misery if you choose feeling better today over doing what's right. And we've actually drawn some big battle lines between people over that in the past, because it is most important to do what's right, and in the long term that will work out the best. In the short term, it may feel uncomfortable, it may be painful, but you know what? There's a great solution to that. Anything that you need to do that's painful, you can put it off for a long time. Actually, I've heard a lot of analogies about this, but basically you can put it off for a long time, and it's going to still be just as painful all the way along, and it's going to be painful when you deal with it. Or you can deal with it today, and it'll be painful today, maybe even more painful today, but not at all painful after that, or at least not nearly as much. So it's kind of like if you have a splinter, yeah, you can sit there and look at it for days and days and think, oh, I don't want to pull it out, I don't want to pull it out. But the thing is, it's going to get infected and nasty, and it's going to hurt a lot worse.
Yeah.
So just deal with it now and get it over with. Okay, if you have, so some of these things, it's really about in your own brain thinking, how can I think more and feel, and you'll still feel, but how can I think more and follow my feelings less? And if you get to a place where you can't do that, I suggest counseling. Counseling isn't just going and chit-chatting with somebody who listens to you and agrees with you. Counseling is finding a person to challenge you, who can look at the situation from not your perspective and say, is it really a good idea if you spend $60 to go out to eat because you were feeling like somebody might be disappointed if they ate at your house? And I mean, that's not the kind of, usually it's a bigger problem than that counselors deal with. But it's amazing the things that block us that we can't see because they're our problem. And if you find yourself in a situation where I just can't, I would recommend first that Boundaries book. It's called Boundaries. Dave's going to share a link to our Amazon store where you can get it. But if you can't find that link or whatever, it's called Boundaries, and it's an amazing book. And it's not our book, but it's really made a difference in our lives in a lot of ways, and the lives of a lot of people we care about. So something else, so counseling. If you can't get your thoughts under control, counseling. And something else I was going to say, Tara and I have sometimes a problem. I mean, like being the couple of the century or whatever and having such a wonderful relationship, which we do. But nevertheless, just like anybody, sometimes she'll wake up, she'll have a frown on her face. I'll think she's mad because I'm letting the feelings rule. I'll think she's mad. Then I'll do something because I'm kind of irritated. And then she'll say, well, he's mad. So then she'll get mad. And it's a spiral that goes downhill because we're not saying anything about it. And we're just assuming things based on feelings. So better to not go with feelings. And one thing, if you make a quick decision, if you respond to things really quickly and don't think about it, that's where the feelings are taking over, and it's going to lead you on a negative path. So seems like I had, there's one that I didn't write down. Oh, I didn't write it down, but it just occurred to me while I was looking at this. Do you find that you always have to be right? If
Yes, I am always right.
if you think that you have to always be right, then feelings are a big problem. Feelings leading you are a big problem, because people only think they always have to be right if they're thinking that somebody's thinking less of them or something like that. And I can say this for a fact, because when I was teenager or late teenager, early 20s, there was a girl I knew that
Say it.
there's a girl I was dating. And she was doing a lot of things that were absolutely disrespectful to me. And I was putting up with a whole lot and being manipulated by my feelings. And she was, of course, trying to manipulate me, but she actually contributed to my life in a spectacular way one time when she said, "Don't you think you could ever be wrong?" And I remember thinking, no, I can't be wrong. And I thought, wait, could I be wrong? Well, in her situation, she was trying to manipulate me, and she was wrong. But she does not realize what a great blessing it was to ask me that question, because later in life I realized, wow, maybe I could be wrong sometimes. And another thing, in my family, it was the big thing to do. Once you realize you're wrong, to fight to the death to prove that you're right, so that you can prove that you're right. And if you have to be right all the time, there is something wrong, and your emotions are causing a problem. And if you want to have a happy life, you need to get a grip on that. Because if you can't admit your failures and then try to figure out how to adjust them,
Get it together, people.
If you can't admit your failures to yourself, I'm not saying you have to go like stand up in front of 100,000 people and tell them all, I failed. But if you can't admit it to yourself, there's no way it's going to get fixed. And you can complain about it every day of your life that things aren't going your way. But if the problem is you are making bad decisions and you're thinking things that aren't accurate and it's not helping your life, it's really harmful to you. So I'm not saying this to say, oh, you should go around sulking all the time and say, oh, look what a terrible person I am. But I'm just saying it's good to be realistic And if you think you're right all the time, you're probably almost never right. So just so you know. And I can say that because I was that guy. So, and Jesus changed me, by the way. So anyway, also if you're afraid of things, feel the fear, do it anyway. And
Also,
if you're afraid of things like the wasp thing, fake it till you make it. I know that's a cliche, but the thing is, I was just thinking, I know this is unreasonable. I know this is irrational. I'm afraid. I'm just going to keep pushing through it. I'm going to do what I need to do. And it didn't sting me.
whoa, that's magic.
And what if it does sting me? Well, sometimes that's just how it rolls. So, but that in that case, I would say if there's a feeling that's uncomfortable, but you know it's really not a rational feeling, if you push through it and just say, I'm going to fake it till I make it, then the intensity of that feeling will decline over time. What were you going to say?
Oh, wait, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Being mature is knowing that you are sometimes wrong. You're not always right. And if you
Yep.
think you're always right, then you probably act like a kid most of the time. I hate to say it,
But it's true.
but it's very true. I've been to high school, guys.
Oh, hey, and when I
To a
say
weird high school.
And when I say be realistic about your kind of shortcomings or whatever, I put here, if you've made bad choices and you realize it, instead of fighting to try to cover those choices, think to myself, be honest with yourself and say, I made a poor choice. And don't dwell on it. Don't beat yourself up over it. But if it's possible to correct it in some way, do that. And if it's not, move on from where you are and figure, how can I get to a better place from here? And so anyway, getting control of your feelings can be super liberating. I have to tell you, I still struggle at times because of past issues in my life. But I would say that compared to the way I was, it's virtually all gone. And it is super liberating to get rid of your feelings. And what's really good is when somebody says, well, how would somebody feel about that? And you're not really doing anything wrong. It feels good to say, I don't really care. It's kind of not my responsibility how they feel about me doing something that's okay. And, you know, it's different if you do something that harms somebody, then it is relevant how they feel about it. But most of the time, if you're not doing something to harm somebody, people say, how you know, how are they going to feel about it? It's not your responsibility. And that's one thing on the boundaries book I mentioned.
Universities,
Common Sense University doesn't give degree joke.
said, why is women's restroom on the right and men's restroom on the left? Answer, because women are always right. Oh, good thing Mom's not here.
I don't know, you should have read that out loud because then
Uh-oh.
we're going to be overturned. So
Nothing.
anyway, so I just want to encourage everyone. I know I thought I was going to keep this shorter today, but I just want to encourage all of you. Think in your life about times where feelings override what's right or what you know to be true. And those things are the weak spots that if you can get those under control, then, or let them go, you can really improve your life. And the reason I say you is because I don't know, there's maybe somebody here who can walk on water, but I'm only aware of one that ever has. But what I'm saying is virtually all of us have a weakness in some way related to how we feel about things. And if you can just think, how can I not let that control me? How can I feel it if I need to and not let it control me? Or how can I deprogram the feeling if it's irrational, like me and the wasps? And now I actually go on bug hunts and kill wasps if I see them around our house. But nevertheless, okay. So do we have any questions or comments before we open this?
Not that I could see.
I'm sure that we probably missed some, but what you got there? Anything? Dave has wisdom. He has awesome role models. Oh, thank you. I sure appreciate that. I feel that that's good. Just kidding.
I've also experienced the bad stuff.
No.
No, like public school.
Thank you, Brenda. Mike, you've been...
Well, certain
Whoops.
people.
Got to read that because that's important.
Oh,
Mike, you've been very encouraging with messages we need to hear. Thank you. Oh, by the way, everybody, I am going to do a cooking show on Wednesday. I was trying to do a lot of shows that I thought would help people right now, but it's kind of stressful because there's a lot of pushback from people who don't want to change.
Don't want to grow up.
There's a lot of pushback from people who want to state the problem and then explain why there's nothing they can do, and everybody, it's the fault of somebody else or some other circumstance they can't control. And the thing is, we're not here to be. It's kind of like I mentioned counseling. Counseling, you find a counselor. The counselor should be goal oriented. I want to see some improvement in you in the next 10 or 20 sessions. And if I don't, I can't be your counselor anymore. Some counselors just come to me every day for the rest of your life, like on Monk, and just kind of tell me all your problems. The problem with that is that's not going to change anything in your life. And
someone recommended getting a journal and just writing out your thoughts and just putting it on paper.
That's another good thing to do.
And reviewing it later and all that.
Actually, the cool thing about a journal is if you say I really need to fix this, and you focus on it, and then later on you look back and wow, I actually did. That's great. But I've been trying to say stuff that I thought would be helpful and helping people that want to improve their lives to do that. But it is a little bit difficult because there are some who don't want to improve. They just want to tell everybody so that they feel good right now that everything's okay.
So multiple people have said bees and wasps can actually smell a hormonal scent that your body gives off when you're afraid.
I've heard that. I don't know if it's true, but definitely I'm sure I didn't make it better by... I think sometimes maybe it's not the... It may not be the hormonal scent when bees and wasps detect that you're afraid as much as when you're doing this kind of stuff. I think that's more of a clue.
Watch out for my face.
From personal experience. So.
Okay, you ready to open this?
Yeah, so I don't want to adult today.
Hashtag adulting.
And the reason I mentioned the feelings one is because it's something that I have struggled with a lot in the past. And having been liberated from that, I feel so spectacular. So, I'm sorry. So this is a package that we got from New Zealand. And I didn't see who it was from. Do you know, dear?
No.
So I'm going to open it up.
It's from a New Zealander, so thank you,
Ooh.
New Zealander. Wait, whoa, what is this?
Wow, looks like a bunch of magazines and things from New Zealand.
All these Christmas cards.
And... Ooh,
Kiwi Homestead Wannabe.
Kiwi Homestead Wannabe?
Brian,
Woohoo!
Aaron, and Simon.
Oh, yum.
Aww.
Here are a whole bunch of recipes.
Holy...
Recipes for...
This is a... Hang on.
These,
where are we going to go first?
Are these primarily New Zealand-based things?
Let's just
for more
get to New
fresh
Zealand
recipes and
before
tips.
I figure it out.
Countdown.co.nz.
Ooh.
Dad.
So these are New Zealand recipes.
So do we
And
want
they
to go
look
to the
delicious.
North Island or South Island first?
First, I was going to say we
What?
want to go to both islands, but...
Whoa.
Okay, here we go.
Oh.
Okay, this is where we're going to go.
Wait, no.
Where is it?
Stop. This is the South Island, I think.
Where is that?
This
Oh,
one.
that's the middle of nowhere.
absolutely nothing where you touch, and that's probably where we
Okay,
want to
It
be.
goes to Wamati.
Wait, stop. This is the North Island, and this is the South one.
Okay,
Oh,
so here.
nice.
I mean, this is the
let's
north.
see.
This is the north one.
You just
Where are we
pointed
going?
it straight at Auckland.
You just poked my eye out.
Oh, sorry. Papakura. Okay, so that's where we're going first.
This is the North Island. Yeah.
Oh,
Whoa.
cool.
We'll figure it out.
Magazines
It's
and
confusing.
Aww,
cookbooks
thank
and
you.
cooking or recipes and things, and a lot of these look like they're specific to New Zealand, or at least New Zealand focused.
Oh, an ad.
Food
ooh,
ads?
ooh.
That's great. Oh, lots of ads. Oh, yeah, and then destinations.
Oh, another Y'all Are Lying video's coming out. Oh.
Wait a minute. How come you're on the show?
$149 for a vacuum.
Uh-oh.
Oh my goodness, what are these?
Oh.
Are these bumper stickers?
Oh, cool.
They just fell out of here.
For my car.
And Dad's.
Oh, thank you, Lynn.
Yes, it was from Lynn.
Thank you.
Who is it
Yeah.
from?
Kiwi Homestead Wannabe.
Oh, thank you so much. We
Maybe
appreciate
we could
that.
go in with them and be Kiwi Homestead. We are.
Well, there was an accommodations guide in here. I think that's a hint that we should come there. And
People look so
I
happy
have to
here.
say, except for the financial part of it, there's not much that would that would prevent us from coming to
Well,
New
what are the
Zealand.
immigration laws to move to New Zealand for a year?
Well, it say, I have no idea. Probably just as strict as Ireland.
Aww.
Yeah,
You have
it would
to
be
pay-
nice to just go somewhere for a year just to try something different and see. And of course, New Zealand is a place that we have high impression of.
Wanda says, "Sit down, Tara. You're supposed to be off the air."
No, but I'm looking at fun stuff.
So I'm going to quickly look through some of these comments before we go. Tara, you're supposed to be relaxing. Yes, she just can't keep herself away, especially after some of the stuff that we've been talking about that's been happening. A lot of comments. First of all, we get so many amazing and wonderful comments, and that's great. But we also get a lot of pushback to when we're touching the nerve of what people don't want to have to do, but kind of know they need to do. And so she's been kind of raring to go, and I'm like, you cannot come back until you're fixed, which means like rested. So
6 weeks after I actually stopped working, I haven't stopped working yet. So what day does that be?
yeah.
Yeah, we're extending your sabbatical by 1 week every time you get on the show.
Okay, sounds
So
good.
so Nanny Pat says shaking it off in 2019. Yeah, you go, girl.
So far, you're at 5 years.
Oh, I didn't see what it was actually that you're shaking off, but hopefully,
Did you hear, Dave?
what?
So far, I'm up to 5 years for my sabbatical because every day I keep working.
Yes. I'm kind of reading these backwards. Okay. So you're showing me how to stand up to my daughter-in-law who's manipulated us out of thousands of dollars we don't have. Yes. And I hate to say it, but I think there are a lot of other people who are lurkers who don't have the confidence to post. But if your kids or your in-laws or whatever or anybody in your family is, you can tell when you're being manipulated. And if you're having that trouble, first of all, I'd be happy to say more. But secondly, I would start, if you have nowhere to start, I would start with the Boundaries book. That will open your eyes so much at realizing, wow, when somebody says this and then I feel that, it's not really reasonable for me to think it's my fault. It really goes into a lot about this is your responsibility and this is other people's responsibility. So like everyone's responsible for his or her own feelings, but you're responsible for your actions. So if you take actions that hurt somebody else and then they feel bad, well, that's your action that's a problem. And so anyway, so hopefully I really hope you can find the way to stand up there. We've unfortunately in some situations had to be eventually pretty severe in dealing with situations of our own. So instinct versus discernment would be a very good topic. Actually, I should make a note of that.
How about you just write your own book?
I vote Instapot. Yeah, actually,
How to live life.
Heidi was suggesting that I do something on Instapot. I'm not really at all experienced on Instapot, but I'm not against trying, especially while Tara's not here and she can't hear me.
Yeah, but does anybody like my tree?
Yeah. Here, do you like Tara's? Tara has, in the last few years, started a new tradition of changing the Christmas tree and leaving it up and calling it, this is a January tree. Then sometimes she does a Valentine's tree, and sometimes she does a St. Patrick's tree,
And Easter?
and then an Easter tree, just to be fun.
It's a tradition.
So let me just look real quick. I can walk in water if it's frozen. Common Sense University, we do that every winter, and it's the funniest thing to tell people we've walked on water and have them.
Oh, yeah.
Mom doesn't think it's funny.
She says, your mom says, my bathroom flooded the other day and I was walking on water. Does that count? Loxley battled. I thought I finally met Mr. Right, but I didn't know he was Mr. Always Right. So, wow, there's a whole lot of stuff going on over here. Actually, Jill is right. If you're Christian, you should be aware that God does not give us a spirit of fear. And she says, which means you're following Satan when you give in to fear. And that's true. You are listening to his voice more than the voice of God. And the other thing also says that Satan is the author of lies. And all the lies come from him. So that's a little frightening. But there's something else I was thinking. It also says that he basically, I forgot the exact verse, but that he creates chaos and confusion, and so God also doesn't give us, I forgot what it is, the spirit of confusion. So yeah. So if you can't laugh yourself, you're missing a good joke. Yeah, I have to say, it was very liberating when I finally came to the point of asking myself, could I be wrong? Because
Yep, all the time.
this is before I met Tara. I started taking these huge leaps forward in kind of improving my life. And of course, again, as I mentioned, I think God led me to that. So yeah, let me see. I remember next time, Sulite, I remember that one the next time I'm upset over something, will this matter in a month? That is so true. I don't know how many things I've seriously obsessed over the years, and I realized later, I caused myself damage, like health damage, worrying about it, and now it's totally irrelevant. So I'd rather have an older car paid for with cash than have a newer car with payments. Yes. Also, not only the newer car have payments, but it also has higher insurance and registration rates and a lot of other things. You have to think more about, are people going to steal it? I mean, I have a Toyota Camry. It's a 2000. It looks great. Runs great.
Steal that car.
It looks great. It runs great, but it's a plain vanilla car, and it's not I don't have to worry about it being stolen.
We don't buy Lamborghinis. Sorry.
Yeah. Colleen, I think people are really unhappy and desperate for that good feeling, even if it's temporary. And yes, okay, so I'm sorry for those of you who might not want to hear it, but this is maybe an opportunity to get your feelings in order. But I have to say, I think my faith and Jesus have really given me a long-term good feeling. And it has helped me not to have to look for the temporary feeling from day to day. There are times where I still struggle in a day and I get upset about something, but in general, I feel joy. Like, I don't always feel happy, but I feel joy. And it's hard to explain, but that is so much different than what I felt before, and I'm very thankful for it. So, let's see. I'm looking to see anything else before we go.
Trying to get my hair in order.
Margaret, I just pick up the hornets off my great niece, and her mom was freaking out. I just said, just give it to God. Yeah, I'm not quite as brave of that, although I would probably do it if it was that kind of situation. But
Wasps are... Bleh. Bees are fine. I mean, bees are friendly.
So one time I was on the Nez Perce Indian Reservation in Idaho, when I worked for Washington State University, and they were so gracious to have us out there in a place where they had never really let outsiders come. And we were interviewing some people, and it was a beautiful experience. But I was there, and it was in my wasp recovery time, and I was standing there with my shorts, and there was grass and stuff, and this is really important for the university where I'm working. And a wasp came and landed on my leg, and I was thinking... And one of the guys from the tribe was standing nearby, and he saw me looking over there at the people, and then he saw me kind of glance down, and he came over and pulled out a big knife, and he just kind of, like, on my leg, he went, and then that wasp flew away. And I was thinking, thank you.
Ow.
But that was a moment for me to realize I must control this feeling, because it was really difficult to set up this meeting, this get-together, and we really, really wanted to be respectful to them in that situation, and I felt like it wouldn't be respectful while in the midst of all that to go crazy. So anyway, so I'm being told I'm talking too much,
yes,
which I probably am.
I can't eat after 10 minutes.
Oh, dinner's ready. Okay.
Don't forget.
All right. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much.
Goodbye.
We sure appreciate all of you being here, and we will be back on Wednesday with some sort of cooking, probably. As long as Mike can figure out something beyond macaroni. Just kidding. I have some ideas, but some of them are more expensive than I thought, so we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much. I'm sorry, who was it again that sent the thing from New Zealand?
Lynn.
Thank you so much, Lynn. We really appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday. So,
Bye.
bye. Let me see if I can go figure out how to cut this. Yay. All right. Bye.